All right, let's jump right in. We're going to explore the secret life of maps, how they went from being just, simple guides to becoming these incredibly powerful tools of intelligence. It's wild when you think about it, how a simple piece of paper, or these days a digital file, can turn into one of the most important instruments of power and control. I mean, listen to that quote. They were able to count their footsteps. That incredible feedback came from the actual Navy SEAL team that carried out the raid on Osama bin Laden's compound. That's that's a stunning testament to just how precise modern map making has become. So, what exactly was this model they were talking about?
Yeah, the mission's secret weapon wasn't a bomb, it wasn't some new kind of bullet. It was a map you could literally hold in your hands. So, before the raid, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency grabbed every piece of data they could find satellite images, intel from spies on the ground, you name it. And they built a perfect physical model of the entire compound. We're talking a 1 inch to 7 feet scale. This let the SEALs walk through the mission again and again, visualizing every single move. They knew the space so well, it was like they'd already been there a dozen times.
So, that model of the bin Laden compound, it's really the peak of a very old idea. This whole concept of using maps for power and control, it's not new at all. So, the big question is, when did a map stop being just, well, a map and turn into an instrument of power? To answer that, we've got to go back, way, way back.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. The earliest maps, they weren't for tourists or explorers. No way. They were instruments of power, built for rulers. They weren't about discovery, they were all about control.
And what's really amazing is that you see this same idea pop up all over the world in totally different cultures. I mean, look at ancient Babylon around 2400 BC. They were making clay tablets to survey land. And why? Well, if you know who owns what, you can tax it. And with tax money, you can fund an army, build a state. You get the picture. Then you've got ancient Greece, where a map on a bronze tablet was basically a geopolitical tool to try and convince Sparta to join a rebellion. Fast forward to China in the 1200s, they're making detailed village maps to manage grain supplies and chase down bandits. The takeaway here is pretty clear. From the very beginning, maps have been about one thing: managing resources, people, and power. Okay, for centuries, maps were mostly about the static world, coastlines, mountains, things that don't move. But then we hit the 19th century, and there's this really critical turning point. The focus of the map starts to shift away from the environment and onto the people moving through it. And you can really see the difference here. Surveying, that's about mapping the environment, charting a coastline, finding safe routes for a ship. It's about geographical knowledge. But surveillance, that's about monitoring people, tracking their movements, their actions. The goal there is all about control and discipline. And this huge revolutionary shift, it didn't happen with drones or in cyberspace. It happened at sea with the British Royal Navy. And a key to this whole thing was a surprisingly simple tool, the ship track. It's literally just a line drawn on a nautical chart to show a ship's path. But think about what that means. For the very first time, you have this continuous visual record of someone's movements and decisions over huge distances. All those unseen actions of a ship's captain, well, now they were totally visible to their bosses thousands of miles away. And by 1862, this wasn't optional. It became a hard and fast rule in the Royal Navy. Every captain had to submit these track charts for every single voyage. All of a sudden, every little decision you made out at sea was being recorded and scrutinized back in London. Every time you changed course, every time you used your steam engine, which was super expensive and had to be marked in red ink, it all went on paper and got sent back to the Admiralty. This was a whole new world of remote management. And you better believe these charts had consequences. Take the case of the HMS Cruiser. In 1867, it nearly wrecked off the coast of Italy. And in the official inquiry that followed, what was the key piece of evidence? The ship's track chart. It was Exhibit A. That shaky, erratic line on the map was just undeniable visual proof that the officers had messed up. Big time. And that event really cemented the map's new role. It wasn't just a tool for navigation anymore. It was a tool for discipline. So this idea of maps as a tool for control just exploded in the 20th century. When the world wars hit, map making completely transformed. It went from being about keeping tabs on sea captains to becoming this massive state-sponsored operation, an absolute necessity for winning a war. Just look at the level of detail here. This isn't your average map of France. No, this is a secret geological map made in 1943 specifically for the D-Day landings. It literally told Allied engineers where to find the exact kind of rock and sand they'd need to build roads and temporary airfields once they hit the beaches. This is mapmaking as a logistical weapon. And then there's this, which takes it to a whole other level. It's called the Going Map, which is just a fantastic name. Its whole purpose was to assess the terrain for vehicles. It analyzed the ground in such detail that it could tell its tank commander, hey, this field will be solid enough for you even if it rains. But that field over there, that's soft clay. It's a trap. We're talking about predictive intelligence, giving your army a massive advantage before they even move.
And at the exact same time, this industrial-scale mapping was happening at the very highest levels of intelligence. You had the CIA's Cartography Center, which got its start back in '41. And you can see from this timeline, its work, its innovation, it was all driven by one global crisis after another. Korea, Cuba, Vietnam, all the way to the War on Terror. Their job was to take raw geographic data and turn it into crucial, actionable intelligence for the president.
And then, in 1966, you have this absolutely pivotal moment. Think about this. Over a single weekend, a team of CIA cartographers digitized the coastlines and borders for the entire world. They created something called World Databank I. This was the huge leap from old-school pen and ink drawing to the automated digital mapping that is the foundation for literally everything we use today.
Which brings us pretty much full circle. We've gone from ancient state secrets to industrial-scale military weapons. And now we're in an era where the power of the map has been completely transformed all over again. This is what some people call the glass battlefield.
So what does that mean, a glass battlefield? It means that today, the battlefield can be observed by pretty much anyone with a credit card. Seriously, the rise of commercial geospatial intelligence, GEOINT for short, has totally changed the game. That super high-resolution satellite imagery that used to be the exclusive toy of governments like the US and the Soviet Union, it's now for sale. It's a commodity. And this new reality has some huge strategic implications. For instance, since this commercial imagery is unclassified, it's perfect for sharing with allies to build a coalition. You can also use it for public diplomacy, to expose what an adversary is doing. But it's a double-edged sword, because your adversaries can just buy the same imagery to keep tabs on you. So militaries have had to adapt. They now use this flood of commercial data as a kind of tripwire. They scan it for anything interesting. And if something pops up, that's when they point their super secret, super powerful spy satellites to get a closer look.
So when the map is available to everyone, who really holds the power? I mean, think about the journey we've just been on, from ancient clay tablets for taxes, to ship tracks for discipline, all the way to commercial satellites that make the whole world transparent. The map has always been a reflection of power. It shows who has the information. But now that this information is basically everywhere, figuring out who has the upper hand is a lot more complicated than it used to be. And one thing is for sure, the secret life of the map is far from over.